have been working really hard at Kids Church this year, looking at what is the light. Jesus is the light, and how, when we have Jesus in our life, can we shine that light to others? So, as COVID has taught us this year, we're able to feel a whole bunch of different things at the same time. We can be happy and excited, and we can be disappointed and anxious. And I think that's a little bit what I was feeling when I put together a bit of a slideshow. I was so proud and so excited about what we did, and I was a little disappointed that we didn't get to finish up our year. However, without all of the COVID-19 things, so many opportunities would have been missed. Miss Viv and all that she did and all of the practical service that came with that, all sorts of opportunities we never would have had if all of this outbreak hadn't happened. So I invite you to join us in the video this morning. Watch it, remember, and celebrate, because we have awesome kids. Adults of the church, thank you for everything you've done. And kids, never let that light of Jesus fade in your life. Remember, Jesus loves you no matter what, forever. And so do the adults in this church. Take care.
everyone. During these times, lots of people are experiencing a lot of anxiety, and I have some tips for you today. For some of you, you may be experiencing tenseness or stress in your body. Others of you may be having difficulty sleeping. But for the most part, a lot of people experience anxiety by having a lot of worries or troubling thoughts that keep popping into their head. So I have some kind of thought-stopping techniques for you today. The first one is try counting exercises. And what I mean by that is try starting at 100 and counting backwards by 3s, 7s, 9s, whatever number is a bit tricky for you, and that can actually help stop your worries in their tracks because it forces you to think about something else. And trying to count backwards is one of those things that may take your mind off of your worries. Another thing that might take your mind off of them is by singing along to one of your favorite songs. It's really hard to think about your worries when you have lyrics running through your head. So try singing along to them. Another thing that might stop your worries is by focusing on the 5 different senses. So look around you. What types of things are you seeing? What things are you hearing? What things can you feel or touch? What can you smell? And what can you taste? And my final tip for you today is about laughter. Some people say laughter is the best medicine, and in this case, it is a great technique to help stop your worries in their tracks. So again, whether it's just kind of forcing yourself to do a fake laugh, ha ha ha, or if it's actually going out watching some comedy or remembering a really funny family memory. Try to think of something that will make you laugh and get your mind off of your worries. Those are my tips for today. Thanks. Bye.
Good morning, Shell Lake. Happy Canada Day. And what a hot one it is. As you can see, today I'm going out climbing, and I don't do this very often at all. It's been a long time since I've been out, but today I'm going to give it a shot. So if you don't see me again, well, come looking for me. A long time ago, I realized that the Bible was full of stories. Yes, the Bible is a book about God, and the stories within it are about God. But there are an awful lot of individuals and groups of people that their stories are in there as well. And if I just want to take one of those stories, it can become life-changing. It could become inspirational to me. And I'm going to tell you a story today about something that actually happened. That, in all of the adventures I've had, this one is funny, but it was incredibly impacting for what went on. So, the story about Mrs. Rose. Now, there was something unique about Mrs. Rose. She was an incredible lady. She still is an incredible lady. And she would be the life of the party if you ever got her giggling. Now, the problem is that Mrs. Rose had a giggle problem. And when we say a giggle problem, she had a giggle wee problem, which means if she giggled far too much, then she would wee far too much. So, as my story comes out, you will realize when we get to it, you'll know what I'm on about. Now, the thing about climbing is that at some level, at some point, you have to put all of your faith in a piece of equipment or a person that's handling the equipment. I have had people at the top of many mountains and many rock faces, and they've all got that same look. When they get to the top of that and the edge of that cliff, and you're about to either rappel them off or they're about to climb up and down that piece of rock face, they just want to know one thing. So, The story I'm going to tell you now is about Mrs. Rose. There's a whole bunch of us in the Welsh mountains, and we're rock climbing and we're rappelling nowhere near as high as this. This is about 90 feet. And Mrs. Rose is standing at the top. She's harnessed up just like this. I'm standing there holding Mrs. Rose, and Mrs. Rose is on the edge of the cliff. Now, Mrs. Rose is hilarious. She's brought all of her hilarious friends with her, and they're all standing there. Go on, Mrs. Rose, go on, Mrs. Rose. And Mrs. Rose gets to the edge, and I can tell she starts to get nervous, just as everybody else does when they get to the edge, when they have to lean back. And I don't know what it is. There's something about relying on this little bit of equipment and starting to lean back and going all the way over the edge and walking virtually upside down. Mrs. Rose is starting to get really nervous. She's starting to shake, and she keeps saying, Paul, Paul, have you got me? Paul, have you got me? And I'm going, yes, Mrs. Rose, I've got you. But Mrs. Rose, when she gets excited, she gets even louder and even more high-pitched. So it's, Paul, have you got me? And I'm saying, yes, Mrs. Rose, I've got you. And she's going backwards, and then she's jumping forwards, and she's going, have you got me? And I'm going, yes, I've got you. And then she's going backwards, and then she's coming forwards. Now I'm starting to get nervous. She's backwards, she's forwards, she's like, oh, here we go. Oh, no, we don't. She is losing it, and she's starting to get super nervous. She gets the nervous giggles. Oh, and we know what happens with Mrs. Rose when she starts to get the giggles. So Mrs. Rose is right on the edge, just like this, hanging over the cliff, and she panics and she pulls herself forward, jumps onto me, I hit the floor, she's lying on top of me, laughing her head off. Giggle weeing. Yes, that's what we call it, giggle weering. There I am, on the top of the cliff, being baptized by Mrs. Rose. Incredible. Never had a moment like it before in my life. Everybody's laughing. Everybody is just laughing their heads off. Do you know, every time I think back to that really unusual story, Mrs. Rose had worked with me for years and years. Nobody had gone into as many dangerous situations as me and Mrs. Rose had. We went into apartments where people would come flying out with carving knives, and Mrs. Rose would never, ever let anybody know she was scared. The amount of homes that she walked in trying to rescue women because their pimp or their dealer was just trying to lock them away from the rest of the world, because obviously that's where he got his money. That's how he exploited people. But Mrs. Rose was always in there. In all the times we would see a gang on a street corner and I'd say, Mrs. Rose, let's go over there. She never, ever said no. She would always walk into those situations. But for some reason, in this moment, on the edge of a rock face in the Welsh mountains, she starts to lose it, and she asks this question over and over and over. Have you got me? Have you got me? When I think about God, and I think about that question, and all the people that their lives can look like they're falling apart, I can safely say, I believe God's got you. Does that mean that He's gonna turn up just because you demand that He needs to be there? Is He just gonna, miraculously change your circumstances because of what's going on in your life? No. Some people's lives do get dramatically altered. But for the most of us, we're like the people in the Bible in those stories, where we have to work through our times of need, our times of pain. We have to strive, understanding through faith that God has got us. God has got our best interests for us. So, in your time of need, in your dire circumstances, in the time of anxiety with knowing, do I go out? Can I trust this person? These people coming into my home or not coming into my home? All of the fears and anxieties are there. Be safe, but please remember, God has got you. You may or may not know this, but Liz, my wife, is incredibly scared of heights. To a degree now, when she even goes over a bridge in a car, she lies on the floor. Not when she's driving, obviously, when she's in the passenger seat. In the Welsh mountains, you can be just climbing a wall. It's not even 40 foot tall, but you've climbed up so much of the mountain to get to that actual rock face that when you actually turn around, it feels like you're thousands of feet in the air. Here, we're only about 160 feet in the air, if that. But it still looks pretty daunting if you're looking over the edge. Now, my wife is not the bravest, but she'll give things a go. And the same day that Mrs. Rose has baptized me on top of the mountain, Elizabeth, my wife, has decided to climb the rock face wall. Well, she gets halfway up there with loads of encouragement and everybody going, "Go on, Liz, you can do it." And she gets halfway up the wall and silence. And more silence. And then we start to realize Liz isn't moving, Liz isn't talking, Liz has left the building. So Liz is like a cat, clung to the side of the rock face, which I shouldn't be laughing. I'm her husband and, I should be, really more, thoughtful on the situation, but it was hilarious. It gets to the point when you know somebody isn't gonna move. And my wife hadn't asked me, but in her brain, she is actually asking me, "Have you got me? Have you got me, Paul?" So I change my harness, I change my gear, I climb up to the side of her where I say, "Liz, I've got you." And she's like, "I don't care." "I don't care. I'm staying here. It's nice here." And all Liz can see is the thousands of feet in the air that she is. So Liz, I had to pry Liz off the wall. I had to connect my harness to her harness. I had to ungrip her hands and then actually belay her and me down to the floor. Sometimes God has to come into your circumstances. And if you like it or not, you have to let go. You have to let Him take over some of your circumstances. Sometimes that's walking with somebody. Sometimes that's praying with people. Sometimes that's just through reading scripture. But we are better together. We're better when we work and support each other. Did I have her? Yes, I did. And our God has us. So kids, your ice cream challenge is a lot easier today, okay? You don't have to think about scriptures. You don't have to go thinking about what you've learned over the last year because it's Canada Day. This one's gonna be a simple one so you can win free ice cream. So there are a couple of critters in the videos that you saw today, and I need you to text me and tell me what little animals you saw in the videos to win free ice cream. So remember, just text me and I will come to your house just like Ava's and give you free ice cream. So excited. Maybe I'll eat it myself. Oh, no, I've got to put the video out. Got me.
What's the first rule?
Be kind.
What's the second rule?
Be kinder.
Out of the shadows, bound for the gallows, Yeah, I was the one that dug that grave as he called.